the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity, tomorrow never certain. What draws behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble from LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannon could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.
Yo, 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 yo. It is showtime, ladies and gentlemen. Am I coming in loud and clear there, Dr. Thunder?
Yes, hearing you loud and clear.
Excellent. Welcome to another episode of Getting Ish Done. Out here Wednesday, I believe. Wednesday, but I'm out here in Africa and it is Thursday out here and I do not have my camera. But that's not going to stop you guys from clicking that like button and sharing the screen or the stream or something. Can't speak apparently either. So no camera and my tongue isn't working either. So but that's not gonna stop us from getting things done. Okay, this is the third part of a series that we're going through here talking about procrastination. Shout out to Valuetainment, Patrick Bet-David. And we're reviewing this video. We're in number 9, where it's saying something about not having a right team or the right team. But anyways, Dr. Thunder, how's it going? This how are the goings on and how are you keeping up with the getting of ish done?
Yeah, all kind of stuff going on. Heavy week, but that's how we do it. I've been looking forward to continuing this conversation.
Excellent. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, click that like button, share the stream. All right, share the stream. And if you have not subscribed, go ahead and click that subscribe button, notification bell, and all that good stuff. We're going to get right into this number 9, and I would encourage you to check the first 2 parts of the stream where we went through from number 1 through number 8, looking at the different reasons why people procrastinate and different insights to overcoming this procrastination habit that each and every one of us struggles with in one degree or the other. Let me see if I can, I might play the background music. Do I have background music on? Let me see. You got that stream.
Yeah, I can hear it now.
Okay. Let's put a nice little level 17. All right, Patrick Bet-David, take it.
Let me explain to what I mean by this. So you're a CEO, you're a founder, you're a C-suite.
All right, I'm going to do something here. Go ahead and mute something real quick. Mute something real quick. And then take this back. And then boom.
Point number 9, you do not have the right team to delegate to. Let me explain to what I mean by this. So you're a CEO, you're a founder, you're a C-suite executive. Say you have 7 deadlines to reach this month, okay? You got all these projects. And 3 of them, it's got to be your diligence on them. But the other 4, you can delegate to somebody else. Now, every time it comes down to you delegating a project to somebody, you either don't trust the individual to be able to do as good of a job as you, or you just don't have the right person. So either you got to start to learn to trust your people or go recruit and find the right people that you can trust, because one of those 2 is preventing you from delegating. And last but not least.
All right, Dr. Thunder. Now, I'm sure you got a lot of experience with that one. everyone who has to delegate encounters this problem. You see, you need to, delegating is a way of scaling, right? And generally, if you're going to scale, you're either going to automate a process or you're going to hire people, right? Delegate that work to somebody else. And a lot of times, if you don't fully trust the person, or let's just say fully trust, and fully trust comes in many different varieties. Either you don't trust their competence, you don't trust their sobriety, or you don't trust that the process will be something that will be smooth, whereby I could just hand it over to this person and I don't have to do 17 follow-ups or check their work 17,000 times and on and on. And this gives you a certain kind of amount of hesitation, right? Dr. Thunder, you don't want to, you're like, maybe I need to look through it thoroughly myself first. Maybe I need to pre-digest it first. Maybe the email or the communications by which I delegate it needs to be more thorough. If you have somebody that you could just like, hey, just you just take the whole, let's say it's something that you're working on that comes from a client, and you just take the whole email chain from the client and you send it to your, to your underling or whatever, like, take care of this. That's ideal, right? That's perfect type of scaling. But the others where you gotta rewrite the email, get these attachment from here and here, do snip all kinds of screenshots and descriptions, highlighting, bolding. What's your experience with this, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, having the right people is big, and you have to be willing to, do the extra work when you're dealing with someone that is new, or someone maybe they're capable but they're new, or maybe there's some aspect of their personality that just is volatile or something, or just not, you just can't quite trust them yet, or you're trying to learn how to trust people better, but you're still not quite there yet. Some of it is you, some of it is the people that you have. At one level, it's all you, because you're going to be the fall guy. You can, you can fire somebody, fine, but still, you're the fall guy because you didn't make the sale, because you didn't get that revenue, because you put something shoddy out there, and now that's your name associated with that. So, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, this is one that and so there's the 80-20 rule, right? Meaning, roughly speaking, 80% of your production is going to come from 20% of the people. 80% of the production, again, is going to come from 20% of your efforts, or 80% of the revenue is going to come from 20% of the clients. With regards to delegating here, with regards to scaling out with other people, this is something that even after doing your due diligence, right, and finding really, really good people, Dr. Thunder, the 80-20 rule still exists. You cannot escape the 80-20 rule is what I'm saying, right? Because even amongst the 20 people doing the 80% of the work, the 80-20 rule still applies. Okay? If you got 100 people, the deal is 20 of them are doing 80% of the work. Amongst those 20, okay, one of them, okay, which is another 80-20 rule, is doing 80% of that work, right? So even if the thing is, we try to escape this 80-20 rule, but in terms of when I say we try to escape, let me just speak for myself now. I try to escape it. I know it's impossible, but the thing is, when you find someone that's really good, you start expecting everybody to be that good in all these different aspects. Again, there's competence, there's sobriety, there's judgment, there's all these things going on. And you just find this one person who's just firing in all cylinders. And then everybody else starts to look lame in comparison. And I would say that just a word of advice to myself and anyone else that's out there that's like me, just realize you're not going to escape the 80-20 rule. The other people that are looking bad because of this superstar that you have, they're good. Okay, don't make the silly mistake of discounting the good people you have because of the great person that you have, right? You cherish that great person, keep that great person. The great person is great, but those other people there are still better than 80% of what's out there. And I have to remind myself from time to time of when I was looking for, or before I found the team, right? And the lowest person on the totem pole in the team, I got to remind myself that, hey, they were once like the best of all, of the talent that I could find, right? And now that there's this other rock star here, you start thinking, oh my God, why can't everybody just be like this person? Why can't I just throw everything to this person and they get it, they execute it, there are no mistakes, they get both the, let's say, the scientific rigor and the aesthetic aspects of things, right? I don't know, it's like so perfect. But that's a trap, right? You can't get that. You can't be expecting everybody to perform at that level, and hence, getting yourself into this kind of procrastination trap. I don't know if you see anything like, or if you encounter anything like that, right? Where people are good, right? But because someone is great, everyone else starts to look bad in your eyes. In other words, you're trying to escape the 80-20 rule. You want to get, this. Anyway, any comments on that?
No, I mean that's totally the case. It's a little bit of greediness. Yeah, I think tamping down the greediness is a good idea. Sometimes you have to just take what you're going to get, be okay with that, and then try to make improvements later. But yeah, it takes a while. Yeah, and of course, time's your money. So,
Well,
there's a good reason for wanting to, have all people that are firing all cylinders, as it were. But yeah, it's never going to happen.
Never going to happen. Actually, this particular one, the year number 9, not having the right team, I was kind of, I didn't know what he was going to say. And I never thought about this particular aspect of, or that thing leading to procrastination, right? So the team is very important. The team is about scaling and all these things, and no one does anything great by themselves. We know all that. But then relating it to procrastination, I never quite thought of it. But now that I see it, I know that I deal with this all the time. There's something that needs to be done, but because the rock star is busy, I keep it on my desk longer rather than do what I needs to be done to hand it over to the person who needs a little bit more hand-holding. I procrastinate. So that's a good one, reminding me here. This one's a little therapy session for myself here, but let's continue.
Point number 10, you simply don't see value in the project you're working on, meaning you see the project, you got to hit the deadline, but you don't really value it. So you just kind of say, you know what, I'm not going to be hitting it, so I procrastinate, and you set it aside and turn your attentions in a whole different place. So now that you start
if the thing is not valuable, then it begs the question, why are you doing it, right? I don't know. What do you think about point number 10 there?
Yeah, so here, wait a minute. I lost that.
Let me just replay. Let me just replay it. Back. Uh-oh. I've gone beyond, but that's a good thing, I guess.
But you just don't have the right person. So either you got to start to learn to trust your people, or go recruit and find the right people that you can trust, because one of those two is preventing you from delegating. And last but not least, point number 10, you simply don't see value in the project you're working on, meaning you see the project, you got to hit the deadline, but you don't really value it. So you just kind of say, you know what, I'm not going to be hitting it, so I procrastinate, and you set it aside and turn your attentions in a whole different place.
Yeah, that's a strange point, because part of me wants to assume that all the projects that you're taking on are important. So it's almost like, why did you take that on in the first place? You have to learn how to say no. You have to be like, that's not my wheelhouse. That's not the kind of stuff that, I'm in business to do. And sometimes you have to take projects because you do have to make a particular bottom line, and maybe those are the only things that are available. However, if you have a bunch of other stuff already happening and you're just saying no, I'm sorry, and you're saying yes just to say yes, and then you're putting it off, it seems to me like you should have just said no in the first place.
That's a very good point. It's something that there's a particular project that comes to mind right now. And yes, what I did think about was like, you know what, this is not valuable. And in other words, I need to start charging this guy way more, or I just need to stop working with him because the project is just taking there's just too many revisions, too many things coming back. And I did procrastinate. Like when I would see his email asking, "Oh, where is this?" I'm just like, "Yeah, screw this, man." Like, I don't want to deal with this crap. And I know, I felt guilty about it because I know it's wrong, but I actively was like, this is not worth it. It's not worth my time, and so on and so forth. But 100% is my fault. I should have charged him more in the beginning, such that it is worth my time. Because at the end of the day, this is all about money. Yeah, if this guy was paying big bucks, I would not be thinking about it that way because I don't care what it is. It's not, he's a client. It's important. But, it's one of like, it's one of my very, this is someone I started working with in 2014. This is one of the very first clients that I had, right? I have. And I don't really do much with him anymore, right? And every once in a while, he'll have something. And this is a project, as I said, came in, all these revisions are happening, blah, blah, blah. It's just, a quote unquote upside down on the project. And I have all this, it's been a crazy year, right? There's just all kinds of crap going on this year in a good way. So I've kind of been putting him in the back burner. And that's all my fault. Either I decide, hey, let me outsource this to someone else. And by that, I mean, maybe just find, this someone, within the organization to say, hey, you deal with this guy now, right? Like this guy, and I'll tell the guy, reach out to this person, right? I'm just thinking out loud, actually kind of trying to solve the problem in my head right now. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, hey, here's the guy, here's your contact. You get to work with this guy now, Mr. Client. Call this person, email this person, and this person will take care of you directly. Because at this point, and the thing is, I kept on doing this stuff for him personally because he was one of my first clients, right? So this is a problem of delegation, a problem of everything. All my fault, 100%. I ended up procrastinating. What do you think about what he's saying here, Bob? That is, what happened, when you value your job only for your paycheck? Obviously related to this thing about something not being valuable enough. But I don't know if anything comes to mind with regards to this somewhat question here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Part of that question sounds like, do you like your job? Do you like what it is that you do? Do you like the project? And on one hand, it is a good thing, and it is nice to like what it is that you do, to be sort of motivated by it. But the other side of that is that you're not always going to be motivated. So, you still have to figure out how to do something at a high level, even if it's not your, even if it's not your favorite thing at the time. So yeah, kind of a challenging sort of issue to even think through.
So the way I like to think about these things right now, because I've learned to You like to say, Dr. Thunder, for example, that you have an unfair advantage in certain regards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that same vein, I've learned to understand that maybe I'm not the best person to be answering this question from a first person perspective, but I have broadened my knowledge of psychology to understand that people are different. And I mean, in definite ways, not this stupid people are different just to say they're different, right? But in very definite ways. There are people, for example, who would start something, like go to college, learn something, and then start a job only to realize that, oh, this is not what I wanted to do, right? In my universe, that does not even compute, I don't even understand how that is. But I've seen that enough times to know that, and I've seen it amongst many different sorts of people. And by sorts, I mean now competence-wise, okay? To know that this is not just, they're not bullshitting me. They're not lying. They're not lying when they said they had to do it and then realize that they don't know, that they don't like it or that kind of stuff. So there's a particular type that has to go through that process, okay? Now, they may have to find other reasons. Okay. Oh, so what I said that in this particular area here is, hey, you may have to do experiments and find what you like. And if you're doing a job for your paycheck where it's not a question of, well, you're not just feeling inspired that day, but you actually don't like this thing, right? And I don't know, you may think of something, Dr. Thunder, that you don't like at all, and imagine yourself, rather than, learning the sax and doing music, you would ended up on this other place, right? So you want to, as quickly as possible, start leaving that place if you are this type of person. But while you're there, you can find other reasons to do the job. Some people find satisfaction, let's say, in the people around or in helping people. If you're that type of person, then hey, make it about the people then, right? Make the job about either your coworkers or the people that you're helping or the clients or, I don't know, world peace, whatever it may be that is, calibrated to your particular personality and what motivates you. Someone like me, I'm very intrinsically motivated, and that tends to go with knowing what you want. Like, I know exactly like what I don't have to do something, to know whether I like it or not. Obviously, there's limits to that. There's certain things I still have to try first to be like, oh, I guess I do like this kind of thing more than that, blah, blah, blah. But typically, that's never the issue with me. Like, I know what I like. So the question of, I guess, so then it's just that then there may be other things, just logistical things, life stage things, whereby, okay, I'm doing this particular job right now because I am a student. Let's say one of my first jobs was UPS, loading airplanes, right? At the UPS airport place, where you have to load the containers that go into airplanes to ship it. Did I love that job? No, but I was in college. I was in community college. Shout out to Coach Greg Adams, right? I was in community college, and it was actually a decent paying job, and it was the kind of job where you could work at night, right? So they had the 24/7 type operation. I took the night shift, which is perfect for kind of college type work. Decent paying job. It was a union job, blah blah blah, and I didn't like that crap. I was kind of too tall for the job because the container was short. So I had to kind of like grab the box and then stoop and go in. It was just horrible, right? The short guys were killing it, but I was doing it because, that was not the end. That was, I was going to move on to something else. And I did move on to something else. Another job I didn't like was being a bill collector. I hated that one. Okay. But again, decent pay, in college, could kind of make my time and stuff like that, could work on the weekends, all that kind of stuff. So that aspect is just a simple grind through it. And to use Jordan Peterson's type of stuff here, you have to look at the nested values that you're working within. This job is so that I can get money, so that I can be comfortable to continue my college education, so that I can end up being educated in the thing that I like to do, and so that I can on and on, right? So with that provides the motivation and all that kind of stuff. Plus also I learned things in every job. And so I would use that. I mentioned earlier that some people the solution for them would to be make it about people, make it about helping. That doesn't work for me. I don't care about people or helping them, right? That's that's partly tongue in cheek because it's kind of interesting, anyways. But that this is let me not go into a sidebar about helping people versus actually saying that you are about helping people. Because I help people a lot, right? A whole lot, like, but I'm not. That's not what I'm about. I'm not motivated by that stuff at all. But I actually do. Like, let's say I'm a kind person, generally speaking. But I'm not motivated by people at all. At all. I don't. No, that's not it. So for me, it was about learning, right? So learning, I know I dig that. I dig learning. So wherever I'm at, I'm like learning something, learning about unions, learning about how the UPS system works, learning about, whatever the hell it may be, or how trivial it is, right? So these are the things that I've learned. To just a quick recap, basically understanding that I'm not a good example, and Dr. Thunder neither is a good example of talking about, well, doing something that you quote unquote don't like from the perspective of not from the perspective of just inspiration, but from the perspective of what you want to do, because the things I do are the things I want to do, and I don't have to go venture into something else to not know that. So you got to use your personality, understand what motivates you, and also if you're in a particular stage in life, and you got to move on as quickly as possible to the next stage, right? And Dr. Thunder, Bob is saying more here. He says, example, right? Example, nurse, right? When they realize they can't stand blood. That's a perfect example of what sounds to me like insanity. Like, how the hell did you go into? Many people in my engineering career have also kind of displayed this type of sentiment. That's why I've said that I've come to accept it, that these people are not capping, right? Or they're not just stupid. I used to think they were capping or just stupid, but many people will go through whole of engineering school, and that stuff is grueling, right? Like, they put themselves through all that stuff, and then they graduate, and then they're like, I don't think I want to do engineering. It still kind of makes my skin crawl. Even though now I get that, okay, I guess that's just the kind of person they are. But I'm like, didn't you know this while you were going through calculus 1, 2, 3, and 4 and differential equations and physics? Like, what? Like, why did you put yourself through all that? And then they tend to be people who are motivated by others, as a matter of fact, because that's how they got into it. Other people told them to get into engineering. The zeitgeist told them, or their family told them, or blah 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 told them to do it, which is something I don't relate to at all either. Like, what do you mean someone else told you? But anyways, a nurse realizing that they don't like blood, that's a similar story as well. I don't know if you have anything to add after this, but we'll continue the video. But anything else to add here regarding Bob's question?
Yeah. Job only for your paycheck. Yeah. So I think the first thing to note is that that's likely the situation that most Americans are in, is that they just basically like their job for their paycheck. There's no way that they would. There's no way that they would do it if there's no way that they would do the job unless they were getting paid a lot. And it's somewhat related to what you said about this person that has been a client for a long time. If it paid a lot more, then you'd be like, okay, I can do it. Right? But since it didn't pay enough, it wasn't worth it, right? It's not as worth it, because you don't actually enjoy doing that. So that sense of things is actually where most Americans are right there. They're not actually wanting to do practically anything that they're doing, but still being able to muster up the intestinal fortitude, the character to still do a good job. That's where most people actually are. And this whole I don't have an issue either knowing what I like. I mean, I know what I like. I've been pursuing what I like. That's pretty much the stuff that I do. I do a bunch of stuff that I like to do. But the problem with that is that you may be avoiding actually developing real character. So these sort of quote unquote salt of the earth kind of people, that they have a really sort of mundane kind of job, but they still do a really good job. And it's only for the paycheck. That's I think that's worthy of admiration and deep respect.
Yep.
Much more so than people that always knew what they wanted to do, and basically everything that they do is stuff that they want to do. Now they work hard, and they're changing the world, and they're helping a lot of people. But as I said before, I have an unfair advantage, and that is I actually enjoy the stuff that I do. Most people do not enjoy the stuff that they do.
Yeah, that person you described is doing.
And here's the thing that sucks about this too, is that there's a lot of pie in the sky dreams. People telling people that, hey, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, you don't, like what you're doing, then what are you doing to change that? Okay, that's great. Yes, you can change your dynamic, but the opportunities are finite. It's not like everybody can be doing just the stuff that they want to be doing. Somebody has got to do the work that nobody else wants to do.
Oh, yes. So I definitely take to heart the point that you're making about the development of character. The person that you're describing here, that consummate professional that comes in, hates doing the job, right? Hates it, but he comes in and he kills it. And, he's the highest paid whatever in the country, but he hates it. That's someone whom I would like to sit down and pick that guy's brain, right?
In many respects, in many respects, especially for the last, I don't know, probably the last 10 years, my dad was in that situation, but he was not in a situation where he could just say, okay, well, he couldn't do the keeping it real episode, from Chappelle show when he quits. He said, "Get your hand out of my face." Now he couldn't do that version. He had to wait for the right scenario. He really didn't. Yeah, that's right. That's right. He could. Great. Because, he had family, he had kids, and he had, you had responsibilities. And that can be a powerful motivation for people that don't really enjoy what it is that they do, is that they realize that people are depending on them. And shout out to Jordan Peterson, though he has taken a lot of criticism for, basically encouraging, young men to get married, young men to take on responsibilities. And in some cases, even if the responsibility is not a fair scenario, he still seems to think that it's better than having no responsibility. I would argue that that's probably true. At least in the balance of things, at least you're taking care of some other people. It gives you something to focus on. It gives you a goal. It gives you a sort of purpose. All of that stuff is true, and it seems to me that that's better than like some a bunch of guys just running around wild and crazy with nothing sort of anchoring them. So to that point, I agree with him. Of course, I would take issue with some other other aspects of that line of thought, because he doesn't seem to fully acknowledge how critically terrible the dating market actually is. I don't think that he is, honestly, I don't think that he is aware, because some of the stuff that he says, given his level of intelligence and given the way that he tends to think through and deliberate through certain issues, it seems to me that he is just not aware.
Yeah, he met his wife when they were 6 years old or something.
Right, which makes him sort of blind to other people's paths. And
it's interesting.
Often I think about that. I think, like, like the right person had a certain kind of conversation with him. How transformational would that be in some of his views? He's a pretty smart guy. He's introspective. He seems like he's willing to make pretty substantial changes in the way that he views the nature of reality and everything. So, but it's hard to say.
There's something that is related to this being the admonishment to go out there and, let's say, get married or pick up a responsibility. So let's talk about the get married thing. And let's say Thomas Sowell comes out and says, hey, if you finish high school and you get a job right after high school, a full-time job, and you keep it and you have a child, marriage first, right, before the child, blah, 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 that you will escape poverty, and some of them will, go beyond the middle class and something like that, all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is, and I heard Glenn Lowry give this particular pushback of, like, this is something that a responsible person does. Marriage does not make somebody responsible. Marriage is what a responsible person does. Like, marriage just being a placeholder here in this particular kind of case, right? That that somebody whom has their ish together will make certain types of choices that make it such that they can keep a job and can foster their personal relationships such that they will get married and do this, that, and the other. And that this kind of coming back and saying, hey, do this in order to get there, it's like, well, no, you get what I'm saying, right? It's a cart before the horse type stuff. It's a causality type of argument at the end of the day, that it wasn't the marriage that caused the people to be responsible. The responsible people did the marriage, right? And that how do you create responsible people is the thing. And at the end of the day, his point was that if you do this kind of utilitarian calculus where you're like saying, hey, do this thing so that you can get this thing, right? Do this so you can get that. You forget the fact that these are virtues and that these virtues are good in and of themselves. That, and also that the results of the virtues are these things that you're seeing, as opposed to saying, hey, I can take, Virgo and his 18-year-old uneducated girlfriend from the street and just marry them, just force him to get married, and all of a sudden it's going to be all roses, right? When, quote unquote, they don't have the virtues and the skills and such. So in this kind of causality stuff, he's kind of has quibbles with it, but also B, because he doesn't want to make a utilitarian type argument. He wants to say virtues are virtues, they're good in and of themselves. I'm not doing this so that blah, blah, blah. These are the things that come out of me when I have my ish together. I don't know if you have anything to say about that. It was a very good, Glenn Lowry was doing his contrarian thing. And I think that was a very good one. He was like, because, obviously he agreed with the person who came to the show telling him, hey, all these stats, think Thomas Sowell or Sowellian type stuff, but also kind of slightly manosphere adjacent, with regards to the Black community, saying, hey, if you do this, and you do this, and you do this. And he's like, hey, dude, these are things that people who already have certain stuff do. And they do this, well, any thoughts on that? It's an interesting one. I did dig the for its own sake aspect,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So it's kind of like the principles are true if if we can see evidence of them or not. We know that the principles actually work. So if they're not working, it must be as a result of an X factor. It must be as a result of an X factor. So, and maybe the X factor is, for some, is obvious what the X factor is, and he's not willing to, he's not willing to engage with that part. Yeah, something like that.
Got it. I think Peterson is aware. That's why he cries. That's funny.
It was like they was going in on him for crying. And it's like, dude. So you say that the guy is like some kind of hate monger, some kind of whatever, and then you see that the guy actually is human, and then you criticize him for that too. It's like, dude, like what what is he supposed to do? I don't know.
Shout out. So let's continue here.
Getting it, so I procrastinate, and you set it aside and turn your attentions in a whole different place. So now that you saw 10 different reasons why we procrastinate, let's talk about how we come to a conclusion of our decision-making process to say, I'm going to go out there and come through with this and not procrastinate, or I'm going to procrastinate on this project. Here's how simple it is. When a task comes to hand, like we have to do something, our brain goes to one of two places. I don't know if I really want to do this, but on the other side is, I have no other choice. I have to do this. For example, I don't know if I want to wake up this morning to go to the gym. I really don't feel like it. You don't have to do it. You get up to go to the gym because you want to go to the gym and get in shape and look better, right? Now, I don't know if I really feel like waking up this morning to take my kids to school. You don't have a choice. You're their ride. You have to get up early to feed them and take them to school because it's your job, right? So somebody may watch this and saying, well, I don't know if I like the word have to. Hate to say it to you, a lot of things in life is things we have to do. No one likes to pay taxes. We have to pay taxes. No one, likes to take their kids to school every morning. You have to do it. No one likes to go pay their bills, but you got to pay your bills. You don't pay your bills, you're kicked out. There's a lot of things we have to. No one wakes up and says, oh my gosh, I love changing diapers. It's just the most exciting thing of my life. I just love waking up to a bunch of poop and diapers. I love it, but you have to do it. You're the parent. You chose to have a baby, right? So there's a level of decision-making process that has to do with your maturity level. The higher we mature, there's certain things we got to do that we don't want to do, but we have to do. So let me get into a little bit deeper. You got 4 things that happens every time you got a decision. First thing we think about, here's a decision, here's a task, here's a responsibility that we got to take up. Number 1, do I have to do it? First thing your brain will say, no, you don't have to do it. Or it will say, yeah, you got to do it, but this one you can assign to the team. We can do it collectively as a family. We can do it collectively as an office. It's a team project. I can make this a team project. Or I can delegate this to an individual to get this done, right? So no, team project, delegate to an individual, or yes, I'm going to do it, right? The challenge with a lot of the decisions that we procrastinate on is things that we have to do and things that it's on me to do that we set aside. That's when it causes problems, okay?
Any comments so far?
Yeah, he seems to be kind of, it's at least adjacent to the comment I was making about most people don't like what they do, but you don't have a choice. This is, hey, this is what it is, and if you don't do it, then you're done. So there's that, and then as it relates to like Jordan Peterson's sort of points about men taking on responsibility, and if it seems like it's a good deal or not, whatever. So it gives you something to do, and it necessarily makes you productive. Because people are relying on you. I mean, and if you don't do it, then the whole thing goes down.
Yeah, it is interesting because immediately when I saw that have to and want to, I was like, oh, Steve Pressfield, The War of Art, which is a great, I think is like the definitive short work on procrastination. And our first video, go ahead and check out our first video when we talk about overcoming sloth. I used a lot of Pressfield ideas. Plus also I've reviewed his book. Check out my playlist on the books. And it boils down to, you got to become a professional, right? So he's basically, what Steve Pressfield is saying, just turn everything into something you have to do.
Yeah.
Now the question is, how do you do that? But and then that's what the book is about, right? How do you turn everything into like, I gotta change the diaper, I gotta take the kids to school, I gotta get up and go to work, right? If everything becomes that, then because there's not a lot of trepidation or craziness or like, oh my God, dragging your feet when you're taking your kids to school, right? Even though it's not the most enjoyable thing in the world, but you have to do it. And I talk about construction workers waking up, putting loading up the truck, getting in there 6 a.m. every morning. I mean, they may like the job, but I'm sure nobody wants to get up every morning, 6 a.m. and jump in the truck, but we do it. That's the professional attitude. So somehow there's this particular area in our life where we're very professional. It happens to be our profession, right? Or he just added things like, family responsibility and such, where there's not a lot of inertia. We don't spend, there's not a lot of heartache. There's not a lot of energy burnt thinking, should I do this or blah, blah, blah. We just do it. And the idea here, and obviously, the War of Art was about procrastination in creative works, or, in big life goal type things, writing that book or doing something big, doing something monumental, significant, meaningful to you, and how those things tend to be met with a lot of resistance, and how you need to change and be a professional. And then the tools of being a professional are very, shall we say, they're, let me not try to use a word, let me just describe it. Or let me just it's about things like setting a schedule. It's about things like, putting it on the calendar. It's about things like having a particular time set aside, a room set aside, a laptop where there's these programs, for example, where, it clears out everything from your laptop. You can't access anything other than write. Let's say you're a writer, for example. So you can't go there's nothing, just a black screen with a cursor on it. All you can do is write, right? So things like that, very physical type things. Like, it's about the space you're in, the tools that you have, the time that you allot to it, when you wake up, and all those types of things. He's saying, make everything like that, because you wake up at a particular time and you use particular tools for quote unquote your profession, right? So just make other things like that as well. And when you make them like that, and you may start becoming skeptical now, Dr. Thunder, because it sounds like magic, right? But that, but it's cart before the horse, but that is the way you do your professional stuff. So maybe you can try making other things like that. What do you think about this argument with regards to making everything things that you have to do?
Yeah, this is interesting. And I think my wife gets a little annoyed and upset with me, because that's what I tend to do with everything. I make it stuff that I have to do. So anytime I take on a new project or take on anything, it becomes stuff that I have to do. Right? So, and you know how it works. You only have so much time. So if you keep taking on other stuff, and then that also becomes what you have to do, it starts to whittle down on other things. And, I try to do, I want to do things, in a sense of excellence. I want to be the best at all the stuff that I do, which is probably not actually possible, right? But you can still be among the best that do something, even if you're not necessarily the best. And the fact is that most people don't recognize the small, nuanced, differences between the best person that does something and somebody that is really great. Because most people, they just don't have the ability to know the difference. They don't have the knowledge base to know the difference. They don't, they're not judging things that way. They're not scrutinizing stuff. And so if you do things at a very high level, then that will be, you can do it so that it is good enough, again, there's that thing that we have discussed in a fairly recent episode, knowing when something is good enough, so.
Red Pill Finance, related to what we're talking about right here, asks a question. Why do you think people procrastinate to their own tasks, but not to others? Well, there's a trivial answer, at least, the trivial answer, and then there may be deeper ones that we could sort out. But hey, it's not, if you don't have to do it, then, it's, there's not even a question of whether you're procrastinating or not. You're not doing anything. You're just delegating it out, right? So it's easy to just tell people to go do stuff. There's no cost to you, because I think we're trying to avoid something, avoid a certain kind of cost. It's the anticipation of or at least the anticipation of the cost, anticipation of the pain, and a lot of times is uncertainty. If we go back to the book on getting things done, right? When you have not sufficiently captured a task, when you're not actively engaged, the way the author used it, with a task, meaning it's just this kind of vague notion in your head. You haven't written it down and then broken it down into subtasks, right? That uncertainty makes you not even want to look in the direction of that task, because it's vague, it's amorphous, it's like this nebulous cloud out there of something that you got to do, and it's dogging you, but you don't even know where to start, right? So we're avoiding it because we have to encounter that thing ourselves. If we can just take that thing and throw it to someone else, it's easy, right? So that will be, for me, the trivial answer, the obvious answer. I don't know what you think about the question here, Dr. Thunder.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know the reason that I procrastinate on stuff that's for myself, as opposed to stuff that has a deadline that's imposed by others. It's because, there's usually payment associated. There's something that I'm, there's something real that I'm going to actually be able to access. It's not as abstract. So and I talk about the difference between how long it takes me to write one of my own pieces, one of my own compositions, and how long it takes for me to write a composition or arrange a composition for someone else. And when there are specific deadlines and parameters, I can work super fast. But if it's, okay, this is going to be my, as they call it, a vanity project, and I'm just doing the stuff that, that I want to do, then I have certain ideas and certain standards that I'm trying to hit, and I want it to be better than the last project. And so there's all of that kind of stuff. And then on top of that, if there isn't as much of a deadline in it, then it just makes it so that it just doesn't become a priority. And then if there's no, and most of these kind of projects, there's not going to be a lot of money in it, right? So you're just kind of doing it because you want to do it. And I don't know, you get in the real world and you start having to provide for other folks, then some of your own stuff starts to take the back seat. And part of that, I think, is actually a good thing. Eventually, hopefully you get to it, but, just has to do with what what your priorities are.
That is I like where you're taking it here, because there is another aspect here. Forget the profession where someone is paying you and there's a deadline, it's externally kind of imposed, and you're someone with principles, and you can't be given excuses and such. And quote unquote, it's not a vanity project that you have your own deadline, which is flexible, and you can keep on expanding it and such. But there's that question of, well, why do people? And this is a rhetorical question, right? But I want to see if you think it's related at all. Why do we bring out the best china for the guests? Why do we make the house look the best for the guests, for others, but not for ourselves, right? Why do we tend to do this, that kind of a thing, right? Obviously it's related, right? But this is, I don't think that's a problem. In other words, I'm not sitting and thinking, oh, no, well, we shouldn't be bringing out the best China. I should be using the best China for myself and all these other types of things, right? But I don't know. What do you think about that thought of like, why do we, bring out all the fine stuff for the guest, or or kill the fat, is it the fattest lamb for the prodigal son? But that just came to mind. But the prodigal son has nothing to do with this. But why do we do that? Or what are your thoughts about doing that? It's not a question of why. Is that something that is okay? Is there something to be learned from that? Is there some kind of like, oh, maybe I should do more for myself? Or is there something, if there's anything to be learned from it, is okay, maybe I should raise my standards for myself a little higher. Maybe I should be treating myself the way I treat the guests. If the guests deserve a nice, clean living room, I deserve a nice, clean living room, or something like that. I don't know. Any thoughts?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So part of it, I think, has to do with just a, sort of presenting yourself, your best. The whole thing of impressions. We realize how important impressions are. So part of it has to do with that, and of course, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that per se, within reason. Okay, within reason, right? So for instance, if you don't even take showers unless somebody comes, you know what I'm saying? Then there could be something that is actually wrong. And that could be actually an indication that you really don't value yourself at a level that you should. Okay. It could also just mean that you're lazy, and you're not willing to put any effort forth unless you're forced to.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you talk about the impressions thing, yeah, because you don't have the chance to keep on, because with yourself, because this also works on ourselves. Like, for example, we know that when you get in a funk, it is easy to just keep on going more and more into a funk. And everyone has been in some kind of a funk before, right? I say that to say that, look, you can also start making a bad impression on yourself as well, right? You can start seeing yourself as a piece of crap because of what you didn't do yesterday, right? Your past self did not prepare for the future. Your past self did not set the path correctly for your future self. So you're a piece of crap, right? Shout out to my bicycle video and Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, right.
So in that regard, you can start doing that to yourself as well. But the thing is, as a person, that, okay, I can always restart tomorrow, right? I could always blah, blah, blah. But when it's others, you don't always have the chance to restart. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression, all that kind of stuff, right? So you can't just be like, oh, I'll just, I'm going to have a crappy living room today when they show up because, if they do come again, then maybe they could. It's like, no, you can't do that. So it's from a very practical, pragmatic sense. You don't get infinite chances with others the way you might get with yourself, right? But yes, you can start making a bad impression on yourself, and that does affect you as well. Shout out to you talked about keeping it real and not quitting. Let's see if I can play this.
Watching when keeping it real goes wrong.
Oh, goodness.
Vernon Franklin was an exceptional young man. He was the valedictorian of his high school class, won several scholarships, and became the first person in his family to attend college. He got a good job and worked 14-hour days, 6 days a week, quickly becoming the youngest vice president in the history of the Viacorp Corporation, ending the cycle of violence and drug addiction that had plagued his family for generations. The officers of his company were wrapping up the usual Thursday meeting in the South Conference Room. when Frank Murphy, the man who had mentored Vernon, made an awkward comment.
Vernon, great job, buddy. You the man. Give me some skin, huh?
Vernon got along with all of the people he worked with, which in his heart of hearts made him feel like an Uncle Tom. Though he could have ignored the simple comment his mentor made, Vernon decided to keep it real.
Get your motherfucking hand out of my face. You heard me, motherfucker. Get your hands out of my face. What you think this is, man? Just shake my hand like a man. I gotta give you some five on the backhand side with all this crazy jab. That's bullshit. You want to lose soft shoe? Should I jump some watermelons for you, boy? Fuck all that.
Vernon, buddy.
Get your motherfucking hands off me, Frank. This ain't a game.
I'm the Vernon I know.
Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Ho. You ain't heard that before, Ho. I used to beat motherfuckers up just like you, just for walking around my way, nigga.
Vernon, buddy.
You better sit the fuck down, Frank. I said, sit down, bitch. Thug like. That is a game, nigga.
Today, Vernon works
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang indeed. Okay. Let me bring back the other share here.
Oh goodness, man. That I was watching that earlier today because I'm rewatching the Chappelle Show series, and I was watching that same episode just earlier today. Man, I was struggling, man. Woo.
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang. I want to talk about and I don't throw this term around very much, but you want to talk about a real genius. That guy is a real genius.
Mm-hmm.
He is a real genius. And just consider how what it was he was doing really didn't exist. That kind of sketch comedy really didn't exist. I mean, you had In Living Color, and you had the stuff that they were doing on Saturday Night Live. You had Mad. What was it? The Mad.
Mad TV.
Yeah, Mad TV. I mean, so you had some things that were doing sketch comedy, but you didn't have anybody that was taking on the racial stuff like that. Nobody really was touching that stuff. And this dude just jumps right in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's again, I think this sort of calling everybody geniuses is way overdone. And I don't like it when people call themselves genius. A genius. I can't take that. Shout out to Kanye West, but you're not really supposed to be the one that says that you're a genius. That really is supposed to be somebody else that says that. It's kind of like, and that is kind of like, it's the same issue that I have with these self-appointed, so-called prophets and prophetesses and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, there's a historical process for that, actually. And the folks that were called that we call prophets now, the people, biblical prophets, that was determined after they died.
Yeah, and there's a reason why they make saints after they die, right? Because
right.
it'll be kind of awkward. Especially if your saint then goes and genocides people right after you declared him. But shout out to Don McKee, always supporting, always supporting. I don't know if you got a sound effect for us, Dr. Thunder. He's got 5.
Yes.
5. Thank you very much for the 5 clip, the 5 jank.
Right. The 5 ball. I heard I was on somebody's show and they were talking about anytime somebody gave it $10, it was a 10 ball.
The Timbo.
What are these new terms? Yeah, I don't know what these new terms are.
Yeah, I've been watching another YouTube channel where he calls he calls it the jank or clip or whatever, whatever it is. He says, let's not also forget to also credit Charlie Murphy. Oh yeah. Charlie Murphy, rest in peace.
Yeah. Absolutely. Charlie,
rest in peace.
I'm gonna tell you now, comedy would not be what it is without Eddie Murphy. Okay, and so we know that he changed the game, and so you got to give him credit. But I'm gonna tell you, I actually dig Charlie more than I dig Eddie.
Charlie was not Charlie went through a particular. So typically, the life of a comedian, stand-up comedy is the hardest type of performance art. I'm not saying hardest in a particular regard, right? Okay.
So you make it.
Exactly. You instrumentalists out there, don't come for me. But it's difficult to go out there and make people laugh and bomb. When you bomb, there's no instrument to hide behind, no song to hide behind, nothing. It's you. Right. You're out there failing, falling flat in front of your face. So the typical path is, you got the open micers. They start doing open mics. And then they get better. They get in a little circuit. They maybe start going to the Comedy Store in LA, and they get in that scene. And maybe they start becoming a regular at the Comedy Store because they got selected by the owner. Pauly Shore's mom, she's dead now. I forget her name, what she was, but people was responsible for the selection there. And then maybe someone picks you up, Joe Rogan, let's say, and then you start going on tour with Joe Rogan, and it's like a 10-year process, okay? Before then you're like on stage doing that stuff. Charlie Murphy went straight to freaking arenas from nothing, right? And that's not easy to do. So it was not some kind of professional comedian type at all. He was just Charlie Murphy, right? And after the Dave Chappelle show thing, he went out, started doing, universities and these, big, numbers and stuff like that. And that stuff is not easy. And he made it look easy. Yeah, so shout out to him for sure. Shout out to Charlie Murphy. Let's see. He's going through now his matrix, right? His matrix of want to do versus have to do. And he's now doing... These are the kinds of... You're skeptical about certain things. I'm skeptical about things like this. Like, when things become very algorithmic, I'm like, I'm not going to go through a decision tree.
Oh, right.
I'm not going to go through a decision tree to get me to it's like, I just rather... I'm all about subjective consciousness. If there's something blocking me, I go in there and see what it is in my feelings, in the images in my head, the talk in my head, and work that out. I'm not going to go through a decision tree. But anyways, let's play it.
The decisions that we procrastinate on is things that we have to do and things that it's on me to do that we set aside. That's when it causes problems, okay? Very simple. It's stuff that I have to do, and it's mainly my responsibility to do it, that I set it aside. Now, I don't want to really touch it. I don't really want to do this. And then the more of these things that stack on top of each other, then you have a cluster of problems you got to be working with. So when it comes down to procrastination, a few things you got to be thinking about that'll help you out. Number one, every time you have a new project that comes to you, first thing you do is once you accept it, make lists of what you need to do next. Listicle. So for instance, what do I need to do here? Step number one, do this. Number two is this. Number three is this. Number four is this. Number five is this. Number six is this. Okay. Let me send that email, number one. Number two, let me make that phone call to this person. Number three, I got to get that thing back. And then I'm good to go. Hey, Johnny, can you make that phone call to Bobby? Get him on the phone. I got to talk to him about this. You're already halfway to getting your assignment done. So you accept the responsibility. You take an assignment instead of procrastinating. Immediately make a listicle of what to do. Number two, create a reward system. If I finish this, here's my reward. Sometimes it's very simple.
Yep, just like the book, right? Just capturing. This capturing thing is it seems to be a very huge thing. I mean, it's yeah.
If I get this part done, I'm going to go out there and go to this place and eat. If I get this part done, I'm going to go out there and do this. If I go and work out 5 days a week this week, on Sunday, I'm going to go out there and get myself this.
I was having a cookie earlier, by the way. That's if anyone detected that I was eating. But for me, do you do the reward thing? I don't, but I was kind of like I kind of do the reward like in a post hoc way, where I find myself eating the cookie, and then I'm like, you know what? Either it's gonna be one of two things. Either it's like, oh crap, this is bad, right? Or or it's like, you know what? This has been a killer week. Eat the cookie, right? I deserve a cookie. So, but I don't sit there thinking at the end of this week I'm gonna have a cookie. It's just that I just find myself eating a cookie, and then it's either I beat myself about it, or it's like, hey, I deserve a cookie. Do you do rewards at all?
Okay, let's see how. Okay, so this is an idea. It's a new idea that I've been working through. So I always make this big deal about there's a difference between tunnel vision and focus, right? Mm-hmm. So focus is, that's discipline, right? I mean, if you're focused, that's because you're disciplined. You have developed that skill. Okay. Tunnel vision, you're not in control of, right? Mm-hmm. So tunnel vision is like, you have a new shiny object. You can't think of anything else. You work 10 hours messing around with this thing. You don't even realize
you're in love with a stripper. She riding, she rolling.
Right. So, there's that. And so as far as like trying to use these sort of something that that will create tunnel vision as a sort of reward for being focused, or placing that thing that that will cause tunnel vision somewhere in the area, the vicinity of the thing that you want to focus on. Mm-hmm. Buying some new gear if you're only you're going to use it to do this particular project.
That's brilliant, man. I just thought about I'm like painting the room, like painting the office. Go ahead. Yeah. Because I'll be more motivated to come in the room with like fresh paint, nice brand new chair. I don't know. Go ahead. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. So I have thought, I've thought about that. I think in the past I've always considered that kind of stuff as like cheating. Like you're not allowed to do that. If you need a reward, that means you're weak. That's how the whole tough guy thing. That dies hard with me. I've really struggled with that, man.
No, look. The tough guy thing is a great attitude because it makes sure that you are. Because look, this particular thing that you're talking about right now, you're going to get 10 times more out of it if all the way you've had the tough guy attitude of not using this thing until you have all the other things in gear, right? You're not just busting out the high octane gasoline before you make sure that the car tire pressures are good and it's nicely hydrated and lubricated and all the parts are nice, all that stuff. And then you do this extra thing, which you might consider cheating, right? So I believe 100% in doing the tough guy thing. Don't cheat, having that attitude all the time. Because when you do cheat, you're going to get more out of it than if you didn't have the tough guy attitude.
Right. All right. So you're incentivizing my cheating then.
I'm not incentivizing the cheat. I'm incentivizing the tough guy attitude. That was the opposite thing.
You're giving me see what you've done is you've given me a workaround.
Hey, thank you. You're welcome.
No, it's not good. So you just told me I don't have to be a tough guy anymore.
Oh wow.
I'm just joking. But yeah, but I you know, it's really interesting. That sort of some of the psychological stuff that actually is effective. And again, it's one of these things where, in one sense, you think, "Oh, that stuff wouldn't actually work," but then you find yourself something actually worked. You got tricked into something, and it actually worked, and then you're like, "Wait a minute, I didn't think that would work." Maybe it does work, you know. So
interesting one indeed. Finding something that will give you tunnel vision and placing it there. All right, making lists, always huge. Everybody talk about making lists and putting them in a calendar, and it's something that I do all the time. Plus, also, by the way, a tangential thing here. This is also related to procrastination in the sense that you run out of steam for particular tasks, and I find that a lot of times what I don't run out of steam for is this type of capture, making lists, that is, right? So if I'm like, okay, I can't do this right now and I can't do that right now, I'm like, okay, how about this other big thing that maybe it's for tomorrow, right? Like I'm tired right now of, I don't know, looking at this screen or, whatever the hell it is, trying to figure something out or reading this email. But it tends to be the case that if I have a big task tomorrow, I can always just turn to and I always have two desks wherever I am. There's always a paper desk and a computer desk. I can always just turn to my paper desk and start listing the tomorrow stuff. In other words, breaking down tomorrow's stuff, this big thing into small little tasks and stuff like that. Before I send emails to my employee that I have to, the one that I have to hold their hand, okay? And I don't think they listen to the show, so. Before I always kind of storyboard that email, right? So I'm like, okay, what do I need? Okay, I gotta get this file. Okay, what is the outcome that I want from them? I want them to produce this and this deliverable. Okay, so how do I communicate these files and this to get this outcome? What do I have to do? And then I set it all up like that. And that way, when I get up the next day to write that email, boom, I just go through my list of like, I gather the stuff, I do the thing, and it takes a whole lot less energy than if I was in real time thinking about how to communicate. Because part of this is I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to communication, let's say, right? Not all the time, obviously, and I'm using perfection as, just because it's not a better word that comes to mind right now. So if I'm gonna send an email to someone about things that they have to do, I don't like being sloppy with it. I don't like just kind of like saying that. I like bullet points and sub points, and I like it to flow logically, right? If I'm making sense, like it's gotta be such that if you could look at this thing, it's easy to read. It doesn't contain superfluous information that's extras or irrelevant information. It has pictures where pictures need to be there and all these other types of things. And I find that it takes a lot of time to do that, but it saves a lot of time as well, right? It saves a whole lot of time. So I may sit down thinking about writing the email, storyboarding the email, either to a client or to an employee, whatever the hell it may be. And then, but once it's done, it's done. It's like because I've always had the attitude of, if you're gonna write something, then it should be good for posterity, right? Like it should be able to stand on its own. It's another way to put it, right? That if somebody came from Mars 10,000 years from now and saw that email, it'll speak for itself. It'll be, you get what I'm saying, right? So that way, it kind of just, you can always refer back to it. Like I could just say, refer back to the email. I don't have to, because just because I wrote it in an email, by the way, doesn't mean that you're going to get it the first time, right? But I can always refer you back to that email, right? So that I don't have to keep on redoing or rethinking, blah, blah, blah. It's just a habit, again, in terms of habits that to develop, because I know that it's very important in terms of like closing deals with people, how you show them something, right? So if I'm trying to sell you a shed, Dr. Thunder, and which is one way of doing it, is I could just tell you about this shed, and maybe I'll pull out just a napkin and draw a rough sketch of the shed, right? The dimensions and this and that, and tell you, oh, it's great and blah blah blah, and it's $5,000, right? That's one way to do it. But if I gave you a 3D rendering of the shed, okay, that is I actually dropped it with Google Maps, okay, in your backyard, okay. I used the backyard Google Maps, I put a 3D rendering of it. I have all these, I have the nuts and bolts and everything. You see it. You can open the door in this 3D rendering. It's like an animation of it. And it's got the parts all listed out. I tell you the tools, blah, blah, blah. Then I write in the bottom, it's $5,000. Everybody listening to me right now knows that the second way is, it's easier to close you that second way. You're already seeing yourself in the shed. I literally put it in your backyard. It's a whole 3D image. Because I know that works, so I just have the habit always of communicating in a particular way where it's always clear and everything goes above and beyond aesthetically, so that people it's just easier for them to pull the trigger. Because all I have to do is just do the napkin thing, right? The bare minimum is to just give you the dimensions on the napkin and tell you it's $5,000. But with that Google 3D image, it's hard to say no. Does that work for you, Dr. Thunder, or are you the guy that's like going to be skeptical of the fact that I put something in your backyard in virtual space?
I mean, I tend to be, I think if it helps me to actually see it, to visualize it in some way, then I'm going to say that sounds like I'd likely be influenced by it. But I do a similar thing like with my students, and so we'll do these transcription projects. And so as far as so when I'm talking about transcription projects, I'm talking about transferring something from an oral medium to a written one. And in particular, I'm talking about solo transcriptions. So like for instance, somebody might take a Charlie Parker solo and write it down. And the purpose of writing it down is for the purposes of analysis. It's easier to see what's going on. And so I talked to them about doing the transcription at a published sort of quality level, right? So, I mean, if you're going to do it, all of the details are handled, and it's done so well in a computer software program where, you could publish it. All of the information, when was the solo recorded, what record was it on, what time, minutes and seconds does the solo start, the chord symbols are all there, markers for every section of the song, every time the whole song form repeats, an indication that it's the second time through this form, all of these details, and that's on top of making sure that it's actually done well, right? And it's for that same reason. It's for purposes of posterity. It's like later, because you want people to be able to look at the transcription, and without anybody explaining anything to them, they have all of the information that they need, right? So I think that's important. I think appearances of stuff are important, and each project is an opportunity for you to, pursue excellence, right? To do something at that level, to refine something even further, to discover something even further, to do it better. So yeah, that's my thought.
100%. So we have come back to that time. Maybe I'll play a couple minutes more of the video here, but it seems like we're going to have a part 4 of this. this video valuetainment, that is, Patrick Bet-David's video, seems like been divided into two parts. The first part where he gave 10 sort of kind of reasons why we procrastinate, right? Everything from being a bad manager of time, which was the first one, which is, you just don't estimate how long it's going to take. So you're missing deadlines, all the way through to, having a bad team or having an organization that procrastinates from the top, where the CEO is dancing on the table, right? Remember that one, Dr. Thunder? And now, and now he's talking about, the ways to let's see this list here on the left. Let's see him populate it, and then we'll wrap it up.
If you read this book every day for 5 days, the kids are going to get this. But there's got to be a listicle, and then there's got to be a reward system added to it. The next thing is to have smaller victories that are getting you excited to develop the muscle of getting projects done. Sometimes you simply have a list and you get the list done. That builds confidence to know, like, look, even this morning I made my bed. Right after making my bed, I brushed my teeth. I made something for my kids early in the morning before I left. Man, this is good. I got a lot of stuff done here. It's victories. I'm getting small things done. So now when a bigger responsibility comes, your muscles being built up for this big one, you get that part done, and that's a massive victory for you. So again, listicle, number one, add a carrot to it once you get it done, create small victories that lead to the big one, and last but not least, the times where you have to do something that you really don't want to do. There's a lot of projects that I have to take as a company that I really don't want to do, but I know it's getting me closer to the vision. Always sell the vision to yourself and the people involved in that project. For example, guys, listen, I know nobody wants to be doing this right now. We're here at 11 o'clock at night, and we got a lot of better things that we can do than being here at 11 o'clock. I'm sure you'd love to be with your family. You probably would love to be Netflixing, chilling with your newest girlfriend. You'd probably love to be playing soccer right now, but here's what we're doing it for. The reality is this: if we get this together, this project's going to get us closer to XYZ, and you can get closer to getting your promotion. You can get closer to doing this, and collectively, we can say we were part of this project. So you do that both with your team, and you got to be able to psych yourself out too when you're working on a project all by yourself and nobody's there. If you don't psych yourself out when you're by yourself on a project you're working on that is a have to, you'll eventually get bored out of your mind and you say, you know what, I'm just not in the mood. So because the whole thing we talked about with boredom earlier, there's a lot of things I do as a CEO and an entrepreneur that's boring, a lot of things. But because the vision is so big and exciting and the legacy excites me and the history excites me, I do it anyways, based on the vision. So again, those are the 10 reasons why people procrastinate. Those are the few reasons how we come up with our conclusion on the decisions we make for procrastination, and a few hacks you can use to help you minimize the level of procrastinating you've been doing lately. And having said that, the next...
So it looks like we were able to finish in 3 parts this one. The one thing I want to comment on and this, the small victories thing is not something that it's not particularly, I don't find any, I like it, right? In terms of like, if you have a list and you knock things out. But for me, I just like the volume. I like to have done a whole bunch of stuff, right? In a day. And it's a day by day thing. In other words, a good day is a day when I go to bed at night, and it's always post hoc. It's never like, like go to bed at night. I'm like, what did I do today? I'm like, okay, I did this, got that one out, got that one out. Oh, bam. Oh, and I did that, and I did that. Oh, great, right? Or when you look 5 years, or when you look 5 years in the past and realize that you're further ahead than you thought you would be, right? In growing a company, for example, it's something that, you put your nose to the grindstone and you're grinding. And then you bring your head up and you look at the numbers and you're like, wow, this is crazy. Like I didn't think we were going to be here, just a couple years ago. Like, this is insane. So yes, I guess I do kind of do the small victories thing in a certain way. But what do you, any final thoughts, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he made a lot of good points. The small victories thing, that's another one of those things that sounds like
momentum
cheating. Well, it sounds like cheating in the manner of speaking, because it's like I didn't really get anything really done, but I got some small victories. You know, I don't know. Okay, maybe it's not like you're cheating. Maybe it's more like, okay, so some people say it's perspective. You know.
Yeah, it's just self-soothing after a. It sounds like you're just soothing yourself over, you know.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, small victories. Yeah, sure. I brushed my teeth.
Yeah, right. Goodness gracious. I don't know. Just some stuff like that. Sometimes stuff like that is just it's like a turnoff. I have a hard time. You know, I have a hard time. You know, giving it that kind of stuff too much sort of credence or whatever. But you know, hey, you know, if it works for you, works for you. I'm not gonna, you know, dog it if it actually does work. I have a sneaking suspicion, though, that a lot of stuff that people think works for them is just talk. So that's my sneaking suspicion.
I have the same sneaking suspicion just because when you talk to people, you realize how unaware they are in terms of, you know, not self-aware of themselves or what motivates them. You see the contradictions that they constantly live out every day, and then they tell you something that quote unquote works for them, and you're just like, dude, I don't. You don't know yourself that well, bro. Like I don't think it works. But there are some things that you can, for example, when it comes to the being motivated by people or service and stuff like that. That one I can say, okay, sure. I can see that generally speaking, there's a group of people who claim that they like it when they do things with you, or like, it's whatever for my. I'm so bad that even the whole family thing doesn't even get me going. Now, I'm about to get myself into a kind of a weird trap, you know, but that's just my solipsism here. Because I do indeed take on responsibilities and pull through and all that kind of stuff. But when I hear people talk about it, I always get suspicious. You know what I mean? I always get suspicious when people go like, you know, and then for my family, and then I'm just like, sounds like thou does protest too much type stuff. Like it sounds like why are you saying that? It just so overall, because there's some things I know I can't go back to. Like once you have a family, you can't just go back to certain, like before I had a family, I always knew that, hey, if XYZ happens, I can always go back to that, you know, that cheap apartment in Fontana and start from scratch, right? But that's not going to cut it these days, right? That's not going to work. That's a recipe for disaster at this point. So I know that that's not going to happen, but it's not like some kind of, now I'm so motivated because of that. It's like, no, it's just, that's no longer there. That card is no longer on the table. Okay. That's just what it means now. It's a different stage in life. Was it Paul that said that, you know, when I was a child or something? But anyways, what do we have, Dr. Thunder, for Thunder's thoughts?
So Ike will be the co-host tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about the value of marriage. Is it over evaluated? Is there any value in it at all? We're gonna kind of have that conversation, and we're going to, as the feature, we're going to be looking at two videos. One is a clip that BGS did of a lead attorney conversation lead attorney was having with a female on his platform, and he was talking about, this is how you evaluate if it's a win or not. So even if you end up getting divorced,
I heard you say that earlier. I think you were in the car and you mentioned that the lead attorney thing, and I had to roll my eyes, not for the obvious reasons of like a marriage and all failure. Like people get divorced. It's part. I just don't like the whole evaluating whether a win thing. Like why the hell do you guys? Why the hell does it have to be a win? You know what I mean? Like I don't get it. Stuff happens in life. Like why does it have to be like, oh, but if I evaluate this, it's like I don't get that stuff. It's not everyone is going to be a stoic. I get it, but it's so strange to me that people want to look at things from what at least it was. They're trying to make something a win. I don't care. Make it a complete 100% loss. I'm still fine. That to me is the mark of psychological health. It's not a win. I fucked up. I lost. Complete failure there. Okay, now I'm moving on. Why do I have to go back and be like, so that's one thing. At the end, when you're at the end and then try to still look at it as a win. But then the other thing of like, trying to motivate yourself by not making the task too big. You know what I mean? By saying, hey, it doesn't have to be for life, right? If I do 10 years, it's fine. That too, I also find to be insane.
You just have to, change your perspective on what marriage is and, on what you think is a win. I also don't like, and shout out to lead attorney. I mean, but
hey, it's not about the lead attorney at all. It's just, it's a thing.
Well,
Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, but he says some stuff in there that it's like, he claims that he knows more about marriage than anybody watching, and then X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you were married. That's cool. Yeah, you've been a divorce attorney for 20 years. Sounds like you know more about divorce than anyone else does. But I don't know how you could make the assessment that you know more about marriage. So he made some, I think, statements that would be hard to actually defend if someone was actually scrutinizing them. So we'll do some scrutinizing of that, in good faith and everything. Not like we're going after him, but there's that, and then there's a video that CGA put out, and it basically kind of details another sort of side of this whole thing, and which I think is interesting. So between those two videos, I think we'll kind of have a nice conversation about marriage. The show is likely not going to be a complete show with all of this stuff, all the usual stuff that I have. I probably will throw in a Simp Anthem of the week because folks really dig that. But other than that, I'm probably not going to have TikTok Theater, or probably just jump right in. Or if we do TikTok Theater, it might be like one or two clips or something. And then just jump right into the videos, because the videos are, I think one of them was like 10 minutes and the other one's like, I don't know, 6 minutes or something like that. So really, we need to use the time for the clips. But I think it's going to be it'll be an interesting conversation because, we're both married, and we collaborate with a lot of folks that are in this red pill space, and many of which have decided that marriage is not worthy. So I think that's a valuable conversation either way. I know it's been valuable for me. Just considering, what I would likely be doing and how my marriage has helped to keep me focused. Because it's part of the reason has to do with that whole when you are committed, when you're in so if you have a commitment, then necessarily that rules out other options.
Yeah.
Right. And so it restricts and refines what it is that your goal is. It also makes you have to choose things that necessarily would be successful, from a monetary perspective. because I can't just go home and live with my parents. It's not going to work. Right. So there's some ways that even just from a psychological perspective that it's helped me to be more focused and serious about certain things. I was going to be pretty serious anyway. So I'm talking about a refinement, not a from zero to hero scenario.
100%. And just a last word here on the motivation thing. And I'll probably repeat this again tomorrow when we talk about it or not. Because the thing, and anyone that listens to me knows that it's not even about marriage, and obviously not about the lead attorney either. It's a certain thing about, I motivate myself by making the task bigger than it is, and then being fine with failure when the failure does happen, or if it does happen. And I think that that's just the best way to be. The idea of being fear-based in terms of like, oh, well, I guess it might not, if I go halfway, again, this is before you've done it, talking about, oh, if I go halfway, or if it's only this, if it's only that. It's like, that doesn't work for me, and I don't find it to be psychologically healthy at all. Like, shout out to Grant Cardone. I resonate with him a lot. Even people don't understand that guy a lot. People were coming from him in 2020 talking about how he's gonna fail, and it is some recent venture he was doing, and he raised $3 billion in his from regular people, and everyone was like saying it wasn't gonna work. But he always talks about this idea of 10x, which is if you gotta do $1 million, well, make it 10 million, right? Just blow it up, right? And then it's really gonna put the fire under you, right? It's gonna, because, and one of the reasons is because it's gonna take more work than you actually think, by the way. Right, like that million takes a lot more work than you think, so might as well just think 10 million. Okay, trust me. Okay, and then when you do fail, that's fine too. Not try to then start to redefine the thing post hoc. So I get not everyone is built that way, I guess. But when I listen to other people talk, they don't seem happy when they talk in this way of like, oh, I guess halfway would be good enough, or looking back and trying to say it was a win after they failed. They don't seem happy. They don't sound happy. They sound depressed. It's not a good vibe that I get from them. So I'm not even willing to give them the pass and say, oh, well, they're just not built like me. It's like, no, it's not healthy for them. It's not good for them. You should be looking at the thing as, oh yeah, you're going all the way, 100%, in it to win it. This is it. Not doing it twice. This is it. And if you do fail, well then, I guess I failed. Okay. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, 9:30, right? 9:30 Eastern time tomorrow on Dr. Thunder's channel. We're going to be doing Thunder's Thoughts, so make sure you come through. And also Case Closed on Sunday. That'll be 4:30 Eastern time on my channel, I believe, because you got a gig or something. So
I do.
Yeah. This gigging. It was a gigging summer, now a gigging fall for you. Just gigging all over the world.
All kind of stuff is coming back, and it's roaring back.
It's roaring back indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for participating. Thank you, Don McKee, for the super chat. Thank you guys whom liked the video. And until next time, we're out. We're gone. Peace.
in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What a pity. Tomorrow never certain. What draws behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest and the righteous in your corners.